Hello, Facebook friends and family. This is Rick or Rico from Puerto Rico, and I am coming to you guys on my new podcast. So, my new podcast is called Visionary Living, and I am. This is the first episode of the series, and my intention for the series is to really have people open up to a life that they can create based on their vision and what they're able to see at the end of as the result that they want to create, instead of living a life out of circumstance. So kind of like whatever pops up on your in your plate, you just take it for what it is, and just it's okay, versus like I can see the end result that I'm trying to generate, and nothing's going to stop me from having it happen. So I continue to walk forward until I can attain the thing that it is that I see in my head. So welcome to the first episode of my podcast, Visionary Living, with Rico from Puerto Rico. I'm actually recording this on a Zoom call as well, and I'll be posting it up to different podcast media platforms. So keep a lookout for all of that, and please follow my series. So as I'm here, I'm just gonna kind of let the music play, let you guys feel it a little bit. I don't know if my iPhone can feel that or not yet, but I'll be uploading again everything that I need soon for you guys. So we're gonna take the next 45 minutes, 30 minutes to 45 minutes to get you guys connected with who I am, what my vision is, and what we're up to. For those of you who are joining me right now, I want to say thank you deeply for your time and your attention. And I will be speaking today a little bit about me. So for those of you who kind of only know the surface me, this is an opportunity for you to kind of get a little deeper. If you have any questions, feel free to post questions. I'm going to start from scratch, where I came from, where I was born, what my journey was like in the realm of transformation, and how did I get to where I'm at now, right? And where am I at now? That's the secondary question that I'll answer too. So, and what is my purpose for what I'm up to and what I'm doing here, right? So, as the first episode, I just figured I'd take it to myself, be the star or the sole host for this one. But as we move forward, each episode is going to also have guest appearances from people in different domains of expertise. So depending on what the conversation or the topic of conversation is for that day or that week, I'll have someone come in who has a lot of knowledge, wisdom, experience in that domain, so that when we get to talking about it, it'll be a very stimulating conversation for everyone involved. So again, this first episode is really just about who is Rico from Puerto Rico. Well, first of all, Rico from Puerto Rico, I was not born in Puerto Rico. And so I was actually born in Brooklyn, New York City. So back on in November 1989, on a cold evening, Rico from Puerto Rico was born. I was born, and at the time that I was born, I was living in Brooklyn. My mom was living in Brooklyn, and my mom and my dad were dating. They were never really officially married. And before I could even remember, they kind of split households. So I grew up in a divided house, going back and forth with custody between my mom, my dad. And when I was 8 years old, 9 years old, my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer. And she actually fought cancer for quite a few years. All in all, it was about 5 years that she was fighting breast cancer, and one year of those 5 years she was actually in remission. So during that year she was free of cancer, and when it came back very aggressively, and unfortunately it took her from this place that we call Earth. And so at 13 I lost my mom to cancer, and my dad was living down in Florida. Orlando area at the time, Oviedo, actually, for anybody who knows Oviedo. And so I, at 13, moved down. And I went to high school at Oviedo High School. I had a decent high school career, and during that time frame, I had a lot of independence in my household. I was able to, kind of come and go as I pleased. I got a car at 16 years old. So living in New York, you don't have the opportunity to get a car that young. It's definitely dangerous driving up there. But down in Florida, the laws are different. I was able to get my car young, and I had a lot of freedom. I ran track in high school. I actually wanted to uh, be a lacrosse player. And when I left New York, I was starting to learn and starting to become part of a lacrosse team. But when I moved to Florida, I looked at the lacrosse team, and I was just a little intimidated by their ball handling skills. Like, they definitely had something that I was missing. So I decided in my freshman year of high school that I was going to do track and field instead, just to condition myself so that I can get in shape with the running, get my cardio up, get my endurance up, to be able to run back and forth on the field of lacrosse. And so I started in track. And when I started running track, I actually went out for pole vaulting. So, in case you guys don't know what it is, it's got like a really long pole to kind of hold it, and you start running down the track with it, and then boing, you kind of like catapult yourself up over a bar. So I PR'd 13 feet in high school, 13.5, something like that. And it was fun. It was a really cool experience for me. I always found myself doing like odd sports and odd jobs, and always looking for that um the puzzle piece that doesn't fit. I always wanted to find that and bring it into my repertoire. So I always I was a scuba diver. I actually got certified for my senior project in high school as a scuba diver. And as a jack of all trades, I bounced around jobs of different industries. So I started off in kind of like a lawn care and stuff like that. And then I was in and out of the food industry, as an 18-year-old, 19-year-old, 20-year-old in college. And then not only that, but I also juggled, delivery driving. And then I was able to land a job at Discovery Cove, and I worked with and around closely with dolphins. So, I started in the sales department, worked into photo and video. And right before I left the company, I was working my way into dolphin trainer as well. So I worked with dolphins for a good 2 or 3 years. My every day, I'd actually wake up early in the morning, like 6:30 in the morning, put on a bathing suit, and I'd get into the water with dolphins. And that was an unreal experience. I'll tell you that. I learned a lot about animal training, behavioral conditioning, and then not only that, but how intelligent dolphins are. Like in fact, I would even say that they're more intelligent than us. They can actually hunt for each other. They can grab babysitters if they have kids, and they can go hunt for their kids. And they have a really cool social structure to the way that they live and interact, and just very smart. And one of the most powerful predators too, I'm pretty sure, on the planet, given its environment. So, like, one of the most powerful predators in the water is what a dolphin would be. But I was able to work a job at Discovery Cove working closely with dolphins, so that was a unique opportunity. For college, I started to study film production, photography. I was actually raised, my dad was a producer, and he was always in and out of auditions, and always in and out of commercials and films and all kinds of stuff. Always sent me on auditions. So, I was raised, again, in my teenage years, kind of like to be that theatrical type of personality, um, always a go-getter, always being put in front of people to introduce myself. As a producer, my dad, he always strived to find prestigious connections and introduce me to prestigious people, and for me to carry myself with prestige and with honor. So, I definitely took that into heart. Um, right after high school, like towards the end of high school, and I was doing some college in Florida, and then I decided that I wanted to go to New York. And so for a good 2 to 3 years, I was definitely reinventing myself as I lived in Florida. And by the age of 2021, I was able to moved back to New York, but now as a young adult. And this was an interesting experience for me moving back to New York, because what I remembered of New York, it wasn't the same as an adult. You know, I lived there from 0 to 13, and then from 13 to 19, I was in Florida. You know, my high school and college career. So when I moved back to New York, you know, it was definitely a hunger. I knew I wanted back. And for me, it was also kind of like an act of desperation, because at the time, I was kind of struggling in Florida, and I didn't appreciate the struggle. And I in my head thought it would be a little bit easier, especially on transportation, to move to a city where you don't really need, you know, a lot of transportation. The fact that transportation is public and so easily accessible, and you can kind of go anywhere really, in the state of New York, or at least in the city of New York, through the subways and the buses. So I moved back, and when I moved back, you know, the first thing I did was started a small business for photography and for video production. I did a lot of like weddings and commercials and headshots and stuff like that, and I liked it, but it definitely wasn't my vision. My vision was to be in Hollywood, you know, and to make feature films, like Hollywood feature films, like Transformers or something like that. You know what I mean? And I didn't want to work up the ladder, the corporate ladder of what it takes to get into the Hollywood industry. And you know, I was doing like 24-hour film festival, 48-hour film festivals, and they were absolutely a blast. Every project I've ever done has been just a beautiful blend of collaboration with people, and it definitely exercised my vision, my creativity, my teamwork, all of that. And so, like, I really found a big passion in producing video. But again, it wasn't what I wanted to do. It wasn't Hollywood style, you know. And so while I was growing my company up in New York, I actually had the opportunity to work for a children's entertainment company. So for a good like 2 to 3 years, while I was living in New York as a young adult, I was working for a company out in Hempstead, Long Island. And what we did was we went out in pairs, so like, you know, a guy girl for the bigender relationship for kids, and we go out in pairs and do like 4 or 5 parties on Saturday, 4 or 5 parties on Sunday throughout the tri-state area. So I was going all the way to Connecticut, New Jersey, and all over New York, from Long Island to upstate to the city. And it was definitely a stressful job based on like location and trying to drive all over the place and go crazy, but it was also a very fulfilling job, as like I went to parties and I entertained families that were already trying to have a good time and feel good, and I was just like a compliment to what that was. And it was just so much fun. I learned how to really embrace my joy and bring it to people in a way that would serve and be a contribution. So, you know, there I learned a lot of my entertainment skills from, you know, managing parties and being able to control the crowd, and magic. I actually learned magic, so I'm a magician thanks to some of my experiences in work. And yeah, so then what ended up happening is, after the 3 years ish that I was living in New York, I decided to move. I decided to move because it was very expensive in New York, and although I could afford it, it was kind of like I was meeting my demands, like my bills, like right at the dollar. And so I just figured, you know, there's got to be a better way, and I decided to move. Where I ended up moving to was Atlanta, Georgia. Now, Atlanta, Georgia was an absolutely beautiful state as well. I loved the scenery. I felt like it was like New York City, but in the forest. Like, we were surrounded by greenery and trees. Like, there was the urban feel to it, but again, the urban feeling was kind of submerged in a more natural experience of trees and foliage and all of that kind of environment. So I really enjoyed big time living in Atlanta, Georgia. And when I moved to Atlanta, Georgia, I had this entrepreneurial spirit where I needed to own my own company. And so I started up a company called Clowns of Atlanta. And this was, of course, based on all of the experience that I learned from the company that I was working with in New York City, for children's entertainment, from balloons to face painting to games and magic and characters like Spider-Man, Superman, all kinds of fun stuff like that. So it was a really fun experience owning the company now in Atlanta, Georgia. and I was able to grow it. And while I was, while I owned my company, I worked on the side too as a server or whatever I needed to do really to fit the bills and to give myself that power as an entrepreneur to juggle all of the things that I wanted in my life. And for 2 years I lived in Atlanta and I grew my company to a decent size. I had a couple of employees that worked for me. I had some regular business, from Children's Healthcare of Atlanta to a few schools that would use my company regularly. And then my mom actually called me, well, my stepmom, obviously, because if you heard from the beginning of the story, I lost my mom, but my stepmom, no distinction there. She's my mom. She's always been in the picture for me. And so she's my mom as well. So my mom actually called me up and she told me about this leadership program down in Florida that she really wanted me to attend. And at the time, I was reinvesting all of my time and my money into my company, into growing myself as an entrepreneur. And so she calls me back a couple months later and she's like, look, Rick, I get that you don't understand what I'm talking about, but you just got to come experience what I'm talking about. Like, I'll pay for your flight. I'll pay for you to go. Just please trust me and please go. And for me, where I was listening from was like, yeah, it sounds like a vacation to Florida. Why not? That sounds fun. So I decided to jump. And so I went to Florida, and I did a 4-day course. It's like a 3-part curriculum. And I did the 4-day course and it was just absolutely transformational. And it is called transformational self-development. I didn't realize though what that meant. And so before I went through the course, for me, life was a 10. Like I had my business was growing. I had prestige there. I also was juggling all of and managing all of my different hobbies and jobs and whatever. I had my place, I had my animals, I had my culture, my community. Honestly, and I was also on the Chamber of Commerce too in Atlanta, Georgia, and Sandy Springs. So I was working a lot of different things, juggling a lot of different things in Atlanta, Georgia. But I went through this 4-day curriculum in Florida that my mom recommended me, and it just it changed my life completely. Like where my life was a 10, I realized that it could be a 20 or a 30 or a 40 if I really choose to see it that way. And I realized that people kind of say that life's a 10 almost to cap their experience and be comfortable with where we're at. But even though there's more room for growth, because that's the only thing that can continue to do until we die, is we can continue to grow, or we can choose to be stagnant. So I ended up coming back to Atlanta, Georgia, and really thinking about this curriculum. I went back for the 2nd level of the curriculum, and then I went back for the 3rd level of the curriculum, and it was so powerful that I decided to close down my business in Atlanta, move to South Florida, and really take on learning how to create workshops like this and facilitate workshops of this caliber. And so therein was the inception of my current workshop that I'm promoting and discussing, which is Successful Awareness. And that's a 1-day self-discovery workshop designed to see the internal dialogue that we have here in our head when it comes to either sexuality or intimate relationships. What I found interesting about this domain of conversation is that it's very taboo. A lot of people they're not used to talking about it, or they don't think it's okay to talk about it. It's just a very taboo subject in our culture. And honestly, for subjects like that are very taboo, there's no growth there. We're just going to kind of make up in our own heads what our assumptions, or what we assume that it should look like or what it should be like. But without actually opening up and talking with a lot of people, we can't get to like a neutral understanding of everyone's experiences as a whole. So I actually found this workshop to be very powerful. The feedback from people as they took the workshop was just outstanding. And I realized that what I had uncovered and written and explored really was bigger than me. It was bigger than what I envisioned, if you will. And so my vision then expanded. And so where I'm at now is I'm growing that workshop, and I've taken the last 2 years to really take myself on in the self-development industry, in transformational technologies or accelerated learning technologies. So from workshops to speaking and now podcasting, I'm trying to get myself out there, and I'm trying to use all of the platforms available to me to get all of my knowledge, all of my experiences out on the table for you guys. And not to say that like my knowledge and experience is superior or better than where any of you guys are at, but as a different perspective, maybe you could learn from my experiences. You could learn from my mistakes, my trials, my victories, all of it. And so here I am, just kind of vulnerably putting myself out there so that all of you guys can reap the benefits of me. So first of all, I'd like to open up the chat. If anyone wants to ask any questions, that was just kind of a basic overview of who I am, where I've come from, a little bit about my background. And so now I'm living in South Florida, starting up my podcast. I'm doing my workshop here in Florida about every month. And then I also expanded to New York in April. And now I'm going to be doing that up in New York for every like 3 or 4 months until I can get some regular momentum. And once I do that, then I'll be traveling probably back and forth between New York and Florida regularly, doing my workshop. And then alternately, I'm also, juggling some video production work down here in Aventura, Florida. So I'm working at a location called Health Gains, helping them with their video production, video content production for, any like trailers or commercials or anything for doctors, because they do a lot of work with doctors, anti-aging treatments and all natural treatments and stuff like that. So it's been an awesome opportunity to kind of like build what I'm building down here. So I see a question: how can I get information about the workshop? If you want more information about the workshop, best thing to do is to go to my website, Pond to Flight. So let me talk to you a little bit about Pond to Flight. That's a perfect question to segue into the next thing I wanted to talk about. So pond2flight.com. So pond like a body of water, to like TO, like the word, and then flight, like you're going to fly. So, there was a big chunk of my life where I actually followed a lot of different, how would you call it? Modalities for like divination or for predicting energetic healing, spirituality. And a big part of that era for me was working with animal totems. And so I would, much like the Native Americans used to use animal totems to uncover like meanings, or like the universe was talking to me and what's the meaning behind these animals. And so for me, one animal that always kept recurring for me, or kept showing up in my space, was the dragonfly. And so the dragonfly, not necessarily like it's something that I love, but it's something that always showed up to me, and I always noticed it in odd places. So, when I looked up the dragonfly, the meaning of the dragonfly, the meaning of the dragonfly is really about transformation. And the reason it's about transformation is because as in a dragonfly's early life, it actually starts off like a tadpole, like a little tadpole underwater, like amphibious. There we go, or aquatic. So it doesn't actually can't go on land. It's lives primarily underwater. Now, once after 2 years of living as a tadpole underwater, it actually goes through a molting process and turns into the dragonfly. And once it turns into the dragonfly, it can no longer go under the water anymore. It can take to the air, can stay on land, but it can't go under the water anymore. So what a very powerful transformation, that it's not even that you emerge from the water and then can go back to it at any point in time. It's like once you've risen above your circumstances, there's no returning to mediocrity. Like you can't go backwards and go back in life to where you came from. You can only continue to move forward once you grow, So my website is called pond2flight.com. Or you could even go to successfulawareness.com. Successful, SUCCSEX. That's the fun part. Full, FUL, awareness.com. So the next workshop is going to be July 20th down here. It's a Saturday. It's all day. I get this a question a lot where people goes, okay, what's the time frame? It's like 10 a.m. till like 9 p.m. And a lot of people, like, their eyeballs pop out of their head, like, what are you talking? That's a long day for a workshop, like that's craziness. But the thing is, like, it's not just like we're sitting in and having a discussion for a few hours. Like, there's actually work involved. If you want to talk about self-development, self-development work is about uncovering, it's about looking, it's about exploring. And there's a lot of, again, like, interacting with other people, journaling, homework. We're going to be doing some work here, and it takes some time to set up dominoes in a transformational way. Could I make the workshop shorter? Absolutely. In fact, I'm going to be putting together a introductory workshop. It's 2 hours for free, where you can come and experience just a taste of what the full workshop would be like. But it's funny because whenever people come to the workshop and they actually commit and stay all day, by 10 o'clock at night, they're still buzzing in the area, and I'm like, guys, get the heck out! I need to clean up the room and close shop. But it's one of those experiences where after you've done the workshop, like, it's just a rush. There's a new perspective in life, in relationships, and relating. So the workshop itself right now is $250 per person, $350 for couples, and that's actually temporary. The price will be going up very, very soon, and maybe in the next couple of months we're going to be probably doubling that, probably about $500 per person, with like $750 for couples. The value that I've gotten, from it, and the feedback that I get from people is just astounding. And I know that there's a demand for it. Now it's time to kind of take it to the next level and serve the community with transformation in sexuality. Again, what kind of inspired me in this domain was seeing how imbalanced the masculine and feminine energies are in our society and our culture. And for me, it's about finding that balance. And it's not to say that masculine and feminine energy are men and women, right? Because men have both masculine and feminine energies, and women have masculine and feminine energy. And it's about finding a balance in each of us, right? And when we find that balance of the masculine and the feminine, there's a whole world of experiences that open up to us now. Now that we know how to dance with it, and when we encounter other people and want to relate to other people who may show up as more masculine and more feminine, when we can balance ours, then it won't be like masculine to masculine kind of bumping heads, or feminine to feminine not really producing results, but it's instead being able to read the other person that you're in relationship with, and being able to dance with that energy so that there's a synergy, and there's balance, and there's communication, there's power there. So I just want to bring the conversation back to visionary living before we close out the podcast for this morning. So visionary living is actually a prelude to a bigger project that I have in mind. That in the next 3 to 5 years, maybe bringing together a center for this work, transformational leadership, self-development. And so I just wanted to start with a podcast to kind of bring a lot of these distinctions and a lot of these discussions to the public, free, just to help people kind of see new perspectives, have power in their lives. And I'm not really reinventing the wheel, right? Like, I'm not the first person to talk about power, living with power, having powerful relationships, leadership perspective. No, I'm just another person that does that. And I'm bringing it to you guys via my personality, because I realize that who I am as an individual is unique to other people. So are there other people and other podcasts you can listen to that have this? Yeah, like Tony Robbins, Les Brown, Gary Vee. There are a ton of thought leaders in our culture, in our world today, that provide a ton of value for us. But I realize that we don't always, not everyone listens to all of those people, and I can be just another outlet for people to kind of learn from, and to experience from, and to get this information from. So again, everything that I'll be talking about on the podcast is not necessarily new, but it's just my flavor of the discussion that is leadership and living with power. So when I came up with visionary living, my perspective, or my concept around visionary living, was, what is it like to live a life out of my vision? So being able to like see an end result that I'm going after, a goal, a dream, and no matter how lofty it is or how attainable or realistic I think it may be, any goal that I want to go after, being able to live out of the vision by seeing the end result, right? And what I find is that a lot of people, like the job opportunity just lands in my lap, and maybe it's not something that I want to do. It doesn't speak to my heart. It's not my passion, but I take it anyways because circumstantially it makes sense. And when I have a conversation with a lot of people, it's like this is, let's say this is point A. And point A is where I'm starting, and I want to climb up the ladder, and I want to hit Z, or my ultimate goal. And so here I am at A, and I want to get to my ultimate goal Z. And so in my head, I make up that the only way to get to Z is by doing all these little things, taking these little steps to get here. And I don't know where we pick that up from. Like, I don't know if we're just trying to make it harder on ourselves, or maybe we look at what other people have done to accomplish those things, and we say, well, if they did it that way, then that's the only way to get from A and get to my Z, right? But the truth is, I find that a lot of people get stuck here in the stepping stones. And then not only that, but they get invested and distracted with the stepping stones, and they never actually reach their Z or their ultimate goal, right? So what I'm going to encourage you guys to do as visionary livers, or living out of a vision, is I'm going to encourage you to really see the end result so clearly of what it is that you're trying to attain, but really clearly, where any questions asked, from time frame to money to what are you going after, all of it would make sense. It would all line up, right? And when you can see that end result really clearly, what I'm going to encourage you guys to do is forget about the little steps in the middle. Just get so committed to this part right here that you're going to go for it over and over again. And just to give you an example of living out of a vision, I just kind of want to maybe share a story for me where I really was going for it, and I made it happen because I saw what I wanted to, where I wanted to go with it. First was when I moved back to New York as a young adult. It took me 2 years to get back. I declared it at one point, and I kept going for it, and I was failing at it. I didn't have enough money to go. I didn't have the right things set up in place to have me win, from a place to stay. Like I there was a lot of factors missing. And I remember it was my aunt and my uncle, Titi Oli and Uncle Rich. And I love you guys if you're listening. And it was them really that had a conversation with me that was a really turning point in my thinking. And it was about setting myself up to win. Like, if I can see my ultimate goal, there's also a preparation process that kind of leads up to it. And I didn't realize that there was a big distinction between being prepared for something and being ready for something, right? So being prepared is like having my ducks in a row up until the event, and being ready is the actual act, or taking action on it, that feeling that I get inside. So I was ready the whole time, but I wasn't prepared. I wasn't setting myself up to win. And so that conversation that they had with me was the first time that I was able to really connect with living out of a vision, was getting clear on a vision and then going for it over and over again until I actually had it happen, and I was able to move. Furthermore, when I actually got into self-development and I wanted to train and become a trainer or a workshop facilitator, I was coached into going for it. I didn't see myself being able to afford what I wanted. I didn't realistically, and I say that lightly, realistically, I didn't see how, and what realistic for me means is that given the circumstances that are currently in my space, what can I attain? And the funny thing is, there's the exception to every rule. So if you don't want to believe that you're the exception to every rule, that's fine. Then you create kind of like the stepping ladder that I was talking about. But if you can truly get that there's the possibility that you can be the exception to the rule. Now, based on almost like magical thinking, what is it that you want to create? What is it that you can envision for yourself as an ultimate goal? And how can you have it happen starting where you're at now and not given any other resources? Just go for it. And when I was going for my certification to learn how to be a trainer and learn how to create workshops and trainings, I kept going for my goal, and I kept flopping on my face, and people saw me going for my goal. And honestly, if you would have asked me to prepare or to set myself up to win realistically, I would have said, great, well, I'm going to skip this cycle. I'm going to save up money. I'm going to save up my time and figure out a future date when I can have it all happen. But again, I was coached into a different mindset of just going for what it is that I want in my life. And so I went for it, and I kept flopping on my face again, but people saw me striving for my Z, and I wasn't caught up with the stair step system in the middle of it. I wasn't climbing the stairs. I was like jumping, trying to grab onto the ladder, and because people saw me jumping for it and going for it over and over again, I got the support that I needed in order to succeed in the things that I said that I wanted. So, but the thing is, if I didn't continuously jump and go for something that I didn't see was possible, other people wouldn't have seen my passion to get there. Other people would not have seen my struggles to get there. And ultimately, I would not have gotten the support that I needed to truly jump to the next level and take myself on, get the support, and succeed in doing what it was that I was up to. So, just something, again, for food for thought, was to go for your Z, get really clear on your dreams, on your goals. What is it that you're after? And if you don't think it's possible, guess what? It is. Someone out there in the world has attained it. Someone else out there in the world has done the work, has done the research, sees you, respects you, will help you up. Somewhere, somehow, there's an exception to the way that you think is fixed. And if you can let go of a fixed reality and realize that life is fluid and reality is fluid, and what I bring to my life is nothing but possibility based on what I think and believe is possible. Truth is, if I don't believe it's possible, or if I believe that it's not possible, then I will be right about it. No matter what you say, I will come up with every reason, excuse, and possible answer to give you to then be right that it's not possible, right? So people are powerful, and our minds are powerful. We can solve any puzzle that we want. The problem that I see most of the time is that we're trying to solve the wrong puzzle. We're trying to solve the puzzle of why we cannot achieve things versus trying to solve the puzzle of how can we achieve things. So if you took anything away from my podcast this morning, I definitely want to kind of present, instead of how can I not, start thinking how can I. Okay, if we're going to be right about some of the circumstances in our lives, then I want to encourage you guys to be right about the reason why it is possible. I want you to start being right about the reason why you can trust, the reason why you can reinvent, like all of the things that stop you. Do you want to be right about the things that stop you, or can you figure out another relationship to those concepts? Can you be right about the fact that you deserve your end result, your goals, your vision for your life? Like, what is visionary living truly? And so as we move forward episode to episode, I'm going to invite guests on each episode to talk about how they've lived their life through their vision, not through their circumstances, right? And it's not to say that there aren't serendipitous moments or opportunities that come up in our space, but I want to declare that those serendipitous moments energetically show up in our space because of our vision and our commitment to our vision. So as we declare a goal that we want in life, it's almost like in the universe, we're creating a gap. And the universe is always in integrity with itself. But when we declare something that's not in existence right now, then we're creating a gap that is not in integrity with the universe any longer because it doesn't exist. And so in order for it to be in integrity, as you move forward towards that vision, the universe will almost serendipitously put in our space all of the opportunities, resources, etc., that we need in order to get there or attain it. So Is this true? I don't know, but living out of that reality has helped me in my life. And I definitely want to encourage you guys to kind of take on some of these perspectives and see what it can do for you. So yeah, and I'm going to take the next 5 minutes to close down my podcast. So first of all, I want to say thank you to all of the viewers that came on to watch me live. If you have any last questions or comments, please post them now before I end the podcast, and I'll happily address them. But I just want to say thank you to everyone who's watching. It definitely means the world to me that I'm able to affect lives or be a positive influence in some way, shape, or form for people. You know, my goal in my life is to be a contribution for people in the most powerful way possible. I realize that the way that I live my life, the way that I think, the way that I feel on a day-to-day basis, it's very unique, you know. I almost make up that I'm an anomaly, you know, because I see a lot of people who can get frustrated very easily, and I've got like patience like no one's business. So, you know, I'm always positive, uplifting. You know, it's very rare that I have a bad day. I throw myself into everything 100%, and I own it. So, you know, I'm happy to be here as an example, using myself as an example for what works or what doesn't work in life. And so hopefully you guys can take a little piece of me with you. And yeah, so I just wanted to give a shout out to Health Gains for allowing me to host my podcast here in their podcast room. It's definitely been a pleasure, and it's been a joy to wake up this morning, eagerly looking forward to this experience for you guys and for myself. I also want to give a shout out to my workshop, Successful Awareness. So again, the next date in Aventura, Florida is July 20th. And then the next date in New York City is September 28th. Okay. And those are both on a Saturday, and it's an all day on a Saturday. I also want to give a shout out to my ringtone. So, uh, with my ringtone, I've got a ringtone out on iTunes Store that you can download it for your ringtone. For you can use it as an alarm, whatever it is. But it's actually my laugh recorded, and I haven't made myself laugh today, so you didn't hear it necessarily. But as you go on through the episodes, I'll keep shouting it out, and hopefully you'll hear it come through. I always get Ricky, Ricardo, Desi Arnaz, you know, like So yeah, pretty funny. Other than that, you know, if we're not friends on Facebook yet, please add me on Facebook. I'll be again adding all of these different modalities or social media outlets and channels that you can connect with me and subscribe and follow me and all kinds of stuff. So my podcast will be running on Mondays. I'm going to start my podcast at 8 a.m. on Mondays. So if you guys are interested in following me rigorously, you can expect me on Mondays at 8. Or if you don't get up that early, that's fine. It'll be on the feed somewhere on Mondays. And if you're interested in showing up on my podcast and talking about a specific domain of conversation and how you were able to create your life based on your vision, then I totally want to be a support for you, be a stand for you, and be a space for you to kind of communicate and convey yourself on this podcast and on Visionary Living. So thank you again, everyone, for watching Visionary Living. You know, again, a podcast to support people in living out of their vision, not out of circumstance. I love you all. I appreciate you all. And again, my name is Rick or Rico. Rico from Puerto Rico, as I like to introduce myself humorously for people so that you can remember my name. So yeah, I love you all again. I hope that you've enjoyed this. It created a lot of moments, educational moments. And again, this is just the first of many many episodes coming to you. And this was just a little bit about me. So maybe in the upcoming episodes, you'll get a lot more of the value that I'm trying to deliver. So have a wonderful day, guys. It's Monday. Enjoy your Monday. Make it the best Monday possible, because whether it's a Monday or a Friday, it's another day, and it's a blessing and a gift to be here, be alive, and to share the gifts that we have as a contribution. So take care, guys.